The following production is part of the Play Some Video Games podcast network.
Greetings, boarders, and welcome to Board with Video Games, the gaming podcast that strives for the right balance of coverage for games to play on your table and on your television. You can think of us as the cream and sugar of gaming podcasts. We're a proud member of the PSVG Podcast Network and thrilled to be a part of the Dice Tower Network as well. I am one of your hosts, Kyle, and joining me on this co-op adventure, the guy who gives life the right touch of sweetness. Josh, how are you doing this evening?
That's very sweet of you, and that could be either. I like when you do it. I could be either the cream or the sugar.
That's right.
It works for both. I'm doing better. I feel better. Hopefully I sound better. I'm very sorry for last week's episode, everybody.
Hey, you know what? You were here. That's the big thing. You showed up, and that's the big thing.
It's probably arguable that it would be better if I hadn't shown up.
Well, otherwise it would have just been me talking to no one for 90 minutes, and that'd been a little rough.
I'll have to tag someone in next time I'm not sick.
That's true.
Schedule it a different day.
Because there are so very many of the PSVG crew that play a lot of board games.
Well, I can tell you, we can just throw Donnie right into the hot seat because he always wants to be on.
That's true.
Okay, I need you in tomorrow.
That's very true.
I'm tagging you in.
Hey, so do you know why I picked Cream and Sugar as the duo for this week?
Oh boy. Is it Game of Thrones related?
It is Game of Thrones related.
And I do know why. It's not a spoiler either. We can talk about it.
Yeah, I don't think that's a spoiler at all.
I think it's pretty funny that they left the Starbucks cup and no one got fired.
Well,
that we know of.
That we know of, right. And did you know that it's already gone?
Oh, they digitally erased it?
Yeah, they digitally erased it already.
Smart. I mean, it's easier. It's probably easier to do that than redesign the whole Sonic.
True, probably true. But I'm actually kind of bummed they took that out. I thought it would be a nice little one of those nice little lore things that just kind of was out there, you know?
But if you're like the DP or the cinematographer, you don't want to be known as the guy who didn't see the Starbucks cup for like your one episode of Game of Thrones you did.
Yeah, but I really don't think it's their fault, right? If you think about a production set for a movie or a television show, there is 1,000 moving parts, right? There are so many people doing so many things, running around, things just beyond the edge of the screen that we're not seeing, right? There's so much happening all of the time. To me, the shocking thing is that nobody caught it in post-production. When they're doing color correction, when they're doing all of that other stuff going probably, I have to imagine in a show like Game of Thrones, frame by frame through everything, I would think.
Yeah.
That's where I'm surprised nobody caught it.
I was going to say something else, but it's a spoiler, so I won't say what I was going to say next.
So here would be the important question, though. Okay, so pretty clearly, it seems like that cup belonged to Daenerys. If you're Daenerys thinking of the character, not Emilia Clarke, but Daenerys, what's in that cup? What do you order from the coffee place in Winterfell? What are you getting?
Dark roast. Plain black dark roast.
That's good. It seems to kind of fit her attitude.
I would imagine.
Yeah. So anyway, hey, but
the name right too on the cup.
Probably not. That's I think too much to hope for that the name is spelled correctly. So
yeah, I'm sure it wasn't.
So and not to get too far down the rabbit hole, but Endgame you have now seen.
I have.
You have seen Endgame. We're in the midst. We only have 2 episodes of Game of Thrones left.
That's crazy.
How are you feeling in general about how Endgame wrapped up and how this last season of Game of Thrones is progressing?
Do you hear my cat?
I do hear your cat. It sounds adorable, but sad.
She wants in. No.
Who can blame her? Who can blame her?
I'm such a good cuddler. How do I feel? I feel fine. I don't feel like I know a lot of people are like experiencing some stages of grief or loss on these things because they know it's coming to an end. But I enjoyed how Endgame wrapped up, but being a comic book fan, my biggest frustration with comic books is nothing is permanent, and that drives me nuts. So I always worry about things that will remain unspoiled. I worry that they build this emotional attachment, and then just to be like, just kidding.
Right.
It's like, joke's on you. You got all emotional about this adventure, and then we're just going to take it all back. So I get frustrated with stuff like that. So while people are worrying about like the MCU wrapping up, I'm more worried about the MCU reincarnating itself to the point where nothing mattered. So I'd rather experience loss and move on than I don't want a pet cemetery. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Bad things happen when you dig up graves and bring things back to life.
Right. Did you watch the Spider-Man Homecoming trailer?
I did. I had to quickly warn everybody I knew that hadn't seen Endgame yet to not watch it.
Wait, is it Homecoming? No. Is that?
Yeah. It's Far From Home.
Far From Home. There we go. That actually made me really excited for potentially the future.
Yeah, it looks awesome. And there's a little bit of a drop of a line in there that can potentially change everything we know.
That's very true. Very true.
Good or bad.
Yeah. And then very briefly, before we actually move on to the full show, Game of Thrones, how are you feeling about this last season so far?
So far, so good. There's only one bad episode, in my opinion, and it wasn't even bad.
Which episode is that?
You know which one. Without spoilers, the one that no one could see.
Episode 3.
Yeah.
So the one, not the most recent, but the one
before. It wasn't bad, but just in comparison, it was for a season that they're limiting you with so much content, knowing you only have 6 episodes. A stinker really amplifies itself in this, and I'm only calling it a stinker because of what it was sandwiched in between makes it look like. If you put a durian fruit in between 2 roses, it's gonna be, where the stinker is.
Yeah, I can see that. I actually, this most recent episode, wasn't a huge fan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I enjoyed the beginning of it, but I really didn't enjoy much of the end of it. So
I liked it because I didn't like where a character was going, and that showed my investment in the character.
That's true. I can definitely understand and appreciate that. So there were some definitely excellent moments in it, but overall, I wasn't thrilled with how some of the things were handled. But there's still 2 more episodes to wrap things up in a nice, neat bow that will answer all of our questions.
For sure.
It'll be completely satisfying for everyone. So, though I will be honest, I'm really not. Yeah,
There's no way it's going to end, and that will make anybody happy. That's just what I've accepted.
I would agree there at this point. But hey, let's get on with the show. Thanks so much for joining us this week. As always, if you have any feedback, questions, suggested topics, hit us up at Board with VG on Twitter, or check out all the awesome stuff that Josh posts over on the Instagram, also Board with VG. We are a proud part of PSVG, and PSVG is on Patreon. We are thrilled with the support you have given us there thus far, and if you'd like to monetarily support what we do, you can find us there at patreon.com/PSVG. But the most important thing to us is just that you listen and maybe share what we do with someone else who might enjoy our podcast as well. And a quick shout out to our Patreon producers, Coach Hulk, Edwin Kahlo, Devin Tyus, Kevin Austin, Chris M, Bonesaw, Barry Cathcart, and Paul Calico. We appreciate that you support us over there on Patreon. As I also said at the top of the show, we are a member of the Dice Tower Podcast Network as well. So if you enjoy our conversations about board games and would like to dive deeper into that world, we encourage you to check out the Dice Tower Podcast as well as the other members of the network. No matter what type of board games you enjoy, there's a podcast on the network that is right for you. So Josh, it's a news week this week.
It is.
What has been some of the big news in the tabletop world?
Well, you could argue this is big news. I think, I don't know that I'll probably defer to you on this for the most part, but Stonemaier Games announced a modular board for the Scythe board game. I guess what I can tell you about it is it's one double-sided board it's the same size as the base board you get in the game. It comes with 4 double-sided tiles. That's 7 hexes per tile. So think like Settlers of Catan pieces, but meshed together. So you have 7 hexes on a tile. 8 home base tiles, 8 structure bonus tiles, a rule book, and automata rules for solo play. It comes out. Oh, when does it come out? You can pre-order it on May 29th from Stonemaier Games. I don't know if I have a release date on here yet, but at least I know we can pre-order it on the 29th of the month. It'll come out late this summer. So I don't know. What do you think? I think the board looks great, but I would also say I think that the board I have looks great too. So what does this do for you? What does this mean for Stonemaier?
I'm actually really looking forward to this. Scythe is a game that I really enjoy. I think I've sung its praises many times on this podcast, and they have done a really good job of releasing interesting, different expansions for this game. The expansions that they've released and the new content they have added for it really enhance what's already there, but then add a new spin or a new idea or a different take on what is already a very good game. And I think the one knock you could probably have on Scythe, the base game, is the board is always the same. You start in the same place. The type of terrain that's where is always the same. The rivers that are there and where they're located are always the same. So this really can add some depth, some replayability, some new strategies, some different ways to take on a game that has been out for a few years now, is wildly popular and very, very good. This seems like a really great way to breathe some new life into it, to give it some new options, and to, if you haven't played the game in a year or so, an excuse to get it to the table again in a way that probably isn't super expensive and in a way that will continue to add replayability and value to the game down the road as well. So I think this is actually a really cool way to make Scythe. I was going to say make Scythe great again. But Scythe is already a great game, right? So this is a cool way to ensure that Scythe has the longevity maybe that you were hoping that other games do that have those modular boards set up. So I'm excited about this. Do you have actually the board game Scythe?
I do.
But you've never played it, right?
No, and it bugs me. It's like, it's one of those big games that I have that I really regret not having played yet. I've had the game for like a year and a half.
Right. And it's one of those games that seems daunting to learn, but once you learn it, you realize how straightforward it is.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I do like that the starting positions can change. I think that's cool.
Yep.
Just from like reading up on like, I'm sure games where you always start in the same spot, if you're always the same house, it would get boring.
Mm-hmm.
So that's cool. Also, it mixes up that strategy element. So you also can't just come in and trounce all over the board because you're familiar with the starting location of your favorite house.
Right.
So I think that's cool. No, I like that. I mean, we talked to Jamie, we fanboyed out a little bit. I just like everything they do. So this is a game that I really would like to get to the board with probably my buddy I play Keyforge with, because then I see more of a reason to invest in these expansions and eventually get to that Rise of Fenris legacy version of the game.
Right.
So I think it would be cool, and I obviously it has enough pedigree so I would know that it is a good game.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of like Blood Rage. I want to get Blood Rage, but I also feel like if I get it before I play Scythe, I'm adding to the problem. I'm not really solving anything there.
That's understandable, I think.
Yeah. At least that's what runs through my head, which isn't always the correct thing. Okay, so the next story is we have the nominees for the 2019 Origins Awards. And we talked about this in Discord briefly, but there, in my opinion, was one glaring omission. But
interesting.
Maybe I'm crazy. So let's go over it. All right. So let's start with board games. So we'll do these quick. And if you want to talk about something, just stop me in my tracks. Board game nominees are Brass, Birmingham, Chronicles of Crime, Cryptid, Everdell, Gizmos, Pulsar 2849, Rising Sun, Root, and Space Base. Cryptid is a game I keep seeing at my FLGS, and I almost buy it every time.
I can understand that. I'm kind of in the same boat with it.
It's been getting so many great, like, so much good press and reviews. Like, I really should just buy it.
This where you feel the glaring omission is, or no?
No.
What do you think of these? If you had to vote, what would you vote for?
Oh, I mean, I would vote for Everdell, probably. Word of mouth makes me think Brass Birmingham might give it a run for its money, and Root is also very popular.
Yeah, I feel like Root is kind of the front runner. Yeah. If I had to guess, just based, it's been getting a lot of awards, and it seems to be kind of that critical darling. So
I'm surprised that Space Base is on there, but only because I haven't played it. It's actually a game I really want to play. I'm also surprised Pulsar 2849's on there because I thought that game was older than just last year.
Yeah, I thought it was as well, but maybe I'm misremembering, which is very possible in my old age.
Yeah, I mean, I could be thinking of there's a game that Renegade does that has a similar look that maybe I'm confusing it with because it is not by Renegade. All right, nominees for card games. There is a surprise in here, and it's the first one. Anatomy Flux, Choose Your Own Adventure, House of Danger, Dark Souls, the card game, Get the MacGuffin, Maiden's Quest, The Mind, and Villainous. I mean, I think Villainous has to win, right? But I don't think it's a card. I mean, it is a card game.
Yeah, I mean,
shouldn't it have been in the board game category?
I would have probably put it in the board game category, but I guess really the only thing you really use in the game is cards. Like you don't really.
Yeah.
There is no board per se. So
well, yeah, you have your own board. Each player.
Well, right, but there's no because I think with all of the other games, there's like a common center board, isn't there? Is it?
I'm not sure about like Dark Souls. You talking about the board games or
board games? Yeah, the board games. I think they all have a common center board that everyone uses. So maybe that's kind of the way it's looked at. That if you have to have a common board, maybe you have player boards as well, but there has to be a common board that everyone uses for the board game. I don't know.
That could be it. I mean, for me, I have Choose Your Own Adventure. I really enjoy that game. I have The Mind. The Mind is good. I have Maiden's Quest. I haven't played it yet, though. So maybe I'll play that soon just to have a better opinion on this category. Right. I'm going to guess Dark Souls, the card game, wins because of how good I've heard it is, but I'm only not saying Villainous wins because of the category, maybe not necessarily. Like, I think it should win, but I don't know.
I'm going to go with The Mind.
Yeah.
Because that is one of those games that people either love or people hate. But I think enough people love it that it could sneak this out, I think.
I like the game better than The Mind. The game.
Yeah, the game. Yeah. Brilliant naming there, the game.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to collectible card games.
This always makes me laugh because I realize no matter how much I am into games, how little I know about certain things.
Yeah, there's also Card Fight Vanguard Unite. There's an exclamation mark in there. Team. Quarter 4 booster. Dragon Ball Super Miraculous Revival booster. HeroClix X-Men Xavier School. Keyforge Call of the Archons deck. Lightseekers Mythical Expansion, Magic the Gathering Dominaria booster, Pokemon Forbidden Light booster, Star Wars Destiny Legacies booster pack, Warhammer Age of Sigmar Champions trading card game Death Campaign deck, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Legendary Collection Kaiba box. Yeah, so those are things.
Those are all things, yeah.
I like the Keyforge.
Is that what you think is going to win? Is Keyforge?
I don't know. My guess would be that I know that Magic the Gathering Dominaria was very well received, so I'm gonna guess that maybe Magic wins it, but I would say that Keyforge is a strong contender in this category.
I think that I also could see though Star Wars Destiny doing well.
But I've heard I've heard fizzle rumors, so I'm not sure.
Oh, maybe not then. Yeah, I don't know
how they're doing. I haven't actually checked though to see.
Gotcha. Are you familiar with Lightseekers?
I am. Every time we see it at conventions or in stores, my wife is always curious because it comes across as almost like a Skylanders art style game
Mm-hmm.
when you look at it, and then when you realize it's a CCG,
Right.
she is immediately turned off. And it also uses AR in the games, so there's aspects to it that are digital instead of physical.
Interesting.
Don't ask me how it works. I don't know if you need a tablet, a PC, a phone, what, but I know there is a digital aspect to the game as well. I don't know if you need it to play, but it's definitely part of the game.
Yeah. I'm just looking at it right now as we're talking about it. It looked like, from an art style, I like it. It looks cool.
They have like figures and stuff you can get too, which reminds me of Skylanders.
Gotcha. Yeah, and just in reading like the intro pack abilities of cards, it seems kind of cool. Yeah, I don't know. I think probably dangerous for me to get into something else, but
we almost bought a full like shipment box from Toys R Us when Toys R Us was going out of business. They had a complete box, which essentially had like 2 different decks, but like 30 of each deck, and it was like
of what?
Of the Lightseekers.
Oh,
like,
really?
Decks, and it was like $5 for essentially $450 worth of card value.
Ooh,
but it was just starter decks, and you know how those
right.
are.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting because the like this one card, Dolo the Mighty ability, take 2 damage, draw 2 cards. That seems good.
Yeah.
Ability, draw 2 cards, your target heals for 3. That seems good too. I'll let you heal a little bit if I get more cards. I like that. Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
seems interesting.
Now you have to do some research.
I will say, really quick side note. So I've been, I feel like this whole show is going to be a little bit of side notes. I have been watching a lot of MTG on Twitch, MTG Arena, because I have this really bad urge to get back into playing a ton again. And I'm seeing if just by watching it, that can like satiate the need and feel I have. Yeah. I will say MTG Arena's interface into Twitch is really, really good. Because when you're watching someone play Arena, with your mouse, if you hover over their cards, they zoom in.
Really?
Yeah. So like you could look at all of the stuff that's happening. You can zoom in on all of the cards. You can like look at their graveyard. Like, so whatever they did to make that interface with Twitch, has made a world of difference in my enjoyment in watching Magic, because I always have full information about what the person who's playing is doing, and everything they know is very easy for me to access. And they did a really excellent job with that.
Nice.
Pretty so anyway, side note. So you're thinking that Keyforge is going to win this, eh?
Yeah, I mean, I have to vote for Keyforge. I love Keyforge.
I know you do. Like I said, I thought maybe it might go to Star Wars Destiny, but if your Fizzle rumors are right, then maybe Keyforge will walk away with it.
Well, I mean, rumors are rumors. They could be 100% wrong. But, yeah. They're pumping out a bunch of new stuff, so, I mean, maybe they're not doing so bad. I don't know if the Fantasy Flight's going to let us in the inner circle, though, of how Star Wars Destiny is doing.
I'll drive up there and ask them, see what they say.
Yeah, let me know. Family games is the next category. We have The Climbers, which also surprised me because I thought it was older. Echidna Shuffle, The Mansky Caper, Pantone the Game, Spy Club, which is a game I really want to get still, Strawberry Ninja, Super Kitty Bug Slap, which I'm sure is fantastic, the T-Dragon Society card game, and When I Dream, which is another game I would love to play in a party game setting.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, the T-Dragon Society is the winner, having not played Spy Club. And Pantone seems like it's a good game for certain people, but maybe not.
Right.
Maybe not me.
Yeah, these are a bunch of games that I'm familiar with, but really haven't played. Like T-Dragon Society card game, I've seen people play, but I haven't played any of these. So I'm going to have to go with the only one I've actually seen playing it. So I'm going to go with T-Dragon Society.
Fair enough. Their new game that my wife is excited for, the Aquacorn Adventure or something like that. She bought the graphic novel when we were at PAX, but they're going to be releasing the card game, in a couple months. So she's excited for that. Miniatures games. We have Fallout Wasteland Warfare, which I have. You've heard about it.
Yep.
Kill Team. That's by Games Workshop. That's a Warhammer game. Kings of War Vanguard, Necromunda, A Song of Ice and Fire tabletop miniatures game, and Star Wars Legion. I think it would be super cool if Star Wars Legion won, but I'm pretty sure Song of Ice and Fire is going to win.
I feel the same way.
Not just because Game of Thrones is like what's going on now, but like if you looked at that game at all and saw what it comes with and how often it's played and people talk about it all the time. So, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I could have done this for all the news, Kyle. Role-playing games. We have Dusk City Outlaws, Flash Gordon, Limited Edition Collector's Box Set, Forbidden Lands, Invisible Sun, Midgard World Book, Mutants and Masterminds Basic Heroes Handbook, Numenera Destiny, Discovery Core Book, Deluxe Slipcase Set, Star Trek Adventures Starter Set, Uprising the Dystopian Universe, and Vampire the Masquerade 5th Edition. Those are all the role-playing games that are not Starfinder or Pathfinder.
That is true. Pretty much. I think that's,
I don't have a guess. Maybe Vampire the Masquerade.
That's the one I would have gone with just because of like my knowledge of role-playing. And actually this and the next two categories I pretty much don't have a lot to say about any of them. So I'd go with Vampire the Masquerade because it's the one I know.
Yeah, I think we'll skip role-playing supplement.
Probably a good idea.
In-game accessories.
Absolutely.
I think we skipped them last year too.
We did, I believe, yes.
So that's all the stuff for Origins. Obviously, we'll see who the winners are not too long from now.
Indeed.
I don't believe. Next story we have, well, if you know Steve Jackson Games, you know that they make Munchkin and not much else. But they do make other things.
Mm-hmm.
They released their report to the stakeholders for 2018. I don't know that we have to get too crazy in depth into this. I'm surprised by how much money they still make.
Yeah, I really am too. Really am.
So they made $5.3 million last year, which was only down a few $100,000. That's it from 2017.
Right.
Which actually is very good for $5.3 million. I mean, they wanted to go up. That was their goal. They didn't reach their goal. However, they're very forthcoming with why these things happened. They launched a Kickstarter for a game called Fantasy Trip, which did very well for them. They got over $300,000 in funding. But the big miss for them was the Munchkin collectible card game.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I honestly think that this just missed from marketing. I didn't see like hardly anything for this game. Maybe a month before it came out, I saw a few things like on Dice Tower, on Board Game Geek. But leading up to that, nothing. There was like a preview event at PAX Unplugged, but you couldn't take pictures of the cards. You couldn't like play a full game. You could just look at them. So
right.
I just don't know that they crushed it in the marketing aspect. I'm not entirely sure, but I mean, that's the risk you take. And they're a little snarky in some of their comments in the report, and they make some jokes, but like how Asmodee buys everything. And
yeah,
they do talk about the changing atmosphere in board gaming, and they kind of blamed that a little bit on Munchkin not being successful.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that that's the case necessarily when you're buying a brand at this point. You're not just buying a mystery game. Like, you know what you're buying. So who knows? Maybe they'll look into Munchkin as a IP and what they're going to do with that. Or maybe they'll just keep putting out new versions of Munchkin. I don't know. What do you think about the whole report and what they were talking about in there?
I do appreciate that they're so transparent about everything, like, because they don't have to be. There's no reason they would have to do any of this stuff. So I appreciate the fact that they do. Things that I am surprised by. Number one, like you said, I am surprised at how much money they make. I'm also surprised at the fact that they had at the end of 2018 around 30 staff. No, that was
that's low.
I mean, you thought that's low?
I thought that was low. I thought they had a much bigger staff.
Oh, I thought that was way more than I thought they had.
Was it?
So
okay.
Yeah, I thought they had way less staff than that. But for me, I think kind of like you talked about was one of the quotes in here is that the current market is more a periodicals business than one that encourages growing and nurturing single games. And things only got worse throughout 2018 as fewer and fewer copies of new titles were sold into distribution. This is an industry-wide issue. We've discussed the problem with several of our friends, and most of us are watching as demand for new games continues to drop.
Oh, I don't agree with that, though.
So what I'm wondering, though, well, right, but what I'm wondering is this kind of what we saw happen in the video game industry, where kind of that AA marketplace pretty much just evaporated, right? That
yes,
people wanted big, huge, expensive, like awesome experiences that they were willing to pay a premium for, but that pushed out then all of like the mid-priced, mid-level games that used to kind of fill those gaps. Now the games got so big and so expansive and became such a lifestyle that you played one big awesome game until the next big awesome game came out, and you ignored all of those smaller, quote unquote, smaller releases in the middle.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, with Kickstarter, with us talking about how expensive games are getting, like probably way more often than our listeners care to hear us talk about, if people are saying, okay, I'm going to buy this one game, which means I can't buy another game for 5 months, and then I'm going to buy one game again, rather than I'm buying 4 games this month or 4 games over the next 4 months. So I'm wondering if maybe that's what is causing that trend of demand dropping, that you have a few home run hitters that are gobbling up the vast majority of sales.
Yeah. Did you see they quoted Shigeru Miyamoto in the thing? So they said a delayed game is eventually good, but a rush game is forever bad. I think that it's interesting because just a few days ago, AEG came out with a statement, and they said this year and for the next few years, they're like, we're going to slow down our game production, and we're going to focus more on quality than quantity. So I think that they're kind of saying the same thing in this.
Right. So we talked about that bubble. You know, is there a bubble in this market? And maybe there is, but not in the way we expected there to be.
Yeah, but I think we would all like to wait longer for a better game.
Oh, for sure.
So I think that their comment about not so many new games coming out, I don't know. That's a part I don't agree with, because just look at Kickstarter and what's out and what's coming out. However, that's good for a company like Steve Jackson Games, because they're not waiting for all these like Munchkin games to come out. They're busy spending all their money on Kickstarter. So when finally we get Munchkin Dungeon 2 or whatever, or a game that they put, instead of 6 months into, they put 12 months into, like,
right,
they're fine. Their fan base everyone still wants board games.
Absolutely.
But I also think you're right also to be cautious about like that whole AAA studio issue that happened with gaming. Like, that's also something that can certainly happen. Which would be terrible for the board game industry. We don't want that. So quick announcements to round it out. We covered Stonemaier earlier, but they also announced a digital version of Charterstone that's coming in 2020. We did ask Jamie about this when he was on, and he did say that this was in the works, but he didn't necessarily have the details to share. And then not too long after that, this was announced. So we can look forward to that. That's exciting. I'm excited to see what that's all about. I don't play Flashpoint. I don't know if you do, but I know Lucas has, and I think he bought it for his brother-in-law. They announced Flashpoint Fire Rescue, Tragic Events. So that's coming out by Indie Boards and Cards, and that's coming out July 24th. It adds interest tokens and 3 new specialists: the strategist, the suppression specialist, and the fire prevention specialist as playable characters.
Flashpoint was always the game that I would stand there and look at it, and then I'd buy the new Pandemic expansion. I always wanted to play it. That's what always happened with it for me.
No, I hear you. The final 2 decks in the last tournament announced for Ashes, Rise of the Phoenixborn, as we see a game named after a phoenix, which is eventually becoming Ashes.
Right.
Unfortunately, Ashes has, we'll say, shuttered as a game. It's entering the
twilight.
Android Netrunner of card games.
Yeah.
It's no longer being produced. But Plathead is very proud of their long-running LCG, and we will for sure have Colin back on and talk about this a little bit too, because he started with his Ashes podcast, and I'm sure he has some words about it. But you can still buy it in stores, and it's still 100% playable. In fact, for me, not that I'm happy that the game is done, but now I know I can complete the game.
Right. You can get everything.
And get everything, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something you can do. What do you think? Any thoughts on Ashes?
I enjoy Ashes. It's a fun game. I have enjoyed when I've played it. I haven't played it in a while, but the kind of like you, this kind of makes me think about, well, maybe I would go and get the rest of those expansion decks and finish off the collection and kind of have that ability to pull it out and have, any option of any deck that they have for it all there and available. So it is a good game. I really enjoy it. And it's just kind of the problem of there being so many games to play. And it's a style of game that, unfortunately my partner's not really into. So my ability to play these types of games is not as prevalent as I would like it to be, but it's a quality game. And I think, I could see them doing something like Mage Knight that has their big complete set of all of the stuff that's very expensive.
Yeah.
But I could see Ashes doing something similar of having a collector's edition or a ultimate edition with all of the decks in it. That'd be kind of cool. A nifty little final little sell out or way to go out and celebrate the game. So yeah, definitely worth a play if you track it down.
Nice. Next up, Dungeon Academy is coming from the OP, which I think is like the best rebranding name of a gaming company. So
you really think so?
Formerly USAopoly, they literally changed the name to the Overpowered. Like, I love that. I think it's so funny. I think it's just clever.
The thing that's the problem with it for me is that we have a local restaurant chain that there's like 5 or 6 of that's called the OP.
Is it really?
Yeah. Well, it's the other place. The other place is the full name of it, but everyone just refers to it as the OP. So every time I hear it now, that's what I think of right away is the excellent pizza that the OP has.
There you go. Well, the OP, I think it's clever. I think it's really funny. So they partnered with Matago to bring Dungeon Academy to North America. It's a roll and write crossed with a dungeon dive game. So dungeon dive, you want to think Clank. Roll and write, you want to think Welcome to or Railroad Inc. Games like this where you are physically writing on your board. Dungeon Academy is for 1 to 6 players, ages 10 and up, and will be available later this year. Thoughts? Anything?
I have really not gotten into the roll and write extravaganza that is currently going on in the gaming industry, and maybe this is the one that will get me into it because I really enjoy the art. I really enjoy the idea of having a roll and write as a dungeon crawler or trying to, dive into something like Clank is. So this might be the one that gets me in. I'm excited about this game. It seems to have really good positive early buzz. So yeah, happy this one is coming to the US.
Perfect. I have not played roll and write games either. I do own one, which is Kokoro by the Kodama people, but we have not played it yet. Okay, so last and certainly least, there is one Kickstarter currently running, as Kyle says, you should definitely not back. And that is A Game of Thrones, the card game, a race to the throne game with a traveling board and electronic point system based on the fantasy series by Song of Ice and Fire, which that has changed recently. This is a Kickstarter with a $15,000 goal. They have $2,619 that I hope are from the people who made the game and not from people like you and me. I really just encourage people to go find this Kickstarter, to look at it and see how a game should not be created or backed. And I don't mean to come down too hard on this, but if you look at the game board is terrible. It's not really a game board. It very clearly says this game is not a direct reflection of the show. Images are subject to change. has been in the works for over a year now. All gifts come with certificate of authenticities. The game is based on a Song of Ice and Fire fantasy series created by the author George R.R. Martin. Some of your funding helps us to procure the rights to this game. This person does not have the rights to Game of Thrones.
No, they do not.
All cards are made with Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop, and AutoCAD for the box design. I would appreciate only real pledges because we worked over a year designing these abilities and coming up with this idea. He goes on to say his name is Daniel. He's a big fan of Game of Thrones. I'm not going to intentionally slander this person. So if you read, you'll see for yourself. This is a terrible investment. This is a unedited Kickstarter with terrible grammar, awful pictures, no FAQ, 740 comments, and today they posted a Game of Thrones card game app for the iPhone. If they reach $45,000, they will create a game. So this also now speaks to someone who is unfamiliar with how to make an app and how hard it is to make an app and how expensive it is to make an app. I don't know, Kyle. I feel like if I keep talking about this, I'm going to sound like a jerk.
I think so. I genuinely think, and I could be wrong about this, I genuinely think the person who created this genuinely wants to do this.
Sure.
Maybe I'm being naive, but I don't fully believe that they're just doing this to try to take a whole bunch of people's money and run away. Because how this is written does not say that to me.
Right.
This genuinely seems like someone who earnestly wants to do this, but doesn't know how this all actually works. Right. And the thing is, like, I think the simple thing says, we talk about what are they going to do with the money? If we reach our goal of $15,000, we will rent a warehouse at $1,000 a month and start production on the game within 3 months of when we move in. We'll also use some of the money to buy the appropriate printers. That's not how this works, right? And to me, my concern isn't so much that this person is on here and is posted this Kickstarter. Like I said, I genuinely don't believe that they're trying to defraud people. I really don't. My concern is, how has Kickstarter not taken this down yet? And maybe they will by the time our episode posts, but this has been up for a couple of days already. And they very clearly don't have the rights, don't have any ability to, in any way, shape, or form, deliver what they're promising. How has someone from Kickstarter not stepped in and said, hey, we have concerns about this? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that to me is the thing that's most shocking. And I think there are some concerns. And yeah, like you said, there's a lot of comments on this that are, I think, being very snarky and very dismissive and very, I don't know what the other word to look for is. Yeah, I think this just shows the danger of what crowdfunding can be, and that you sometimes can have, I think this is the perfect example of someone who really wants to do something, but clearly does not have the skills or knowledge necessary to do it, but nobody is helping them with that process or with the idea of, hey, this isn't a thing you probably can actually do. Like, you don't have all the knowledge of making this happen or knowing enough about the game industry, getting right, any of those things to make this work. So yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you have definitely a better way at looking at it than I do, because I just see that, and you're 100% right. But when I saw it, I wasn't thinking that this person needs some direction. I was just thinking this is a person who's ripping people off.
And it very well could be. Just am, and maybe just naively, like I said,
promising
not to do that.
Signed. He's like, oh, we have very rare signed this or that. 50 of 50 left. It's not very rare if you have 50 of them just for your project. I'm sorry.
Oh, anyway. So if you want to not back a Kickstarter, this would be a
Don't do that one, yeah.
Don't do this one. This is going to be one of those ones that I think you'd be very disappointed in.
Yes, it's not like when Donnie backed that really cool looking Fire Emblem game. Like,
right,
that would have been awesome. But then, like, Nintendo was all over it within
another
days.
case of somebody not having the rights to what they were doing.
Yeah, but like, how does HBO not like throwing the hammer down on this thing?
That is kind of surprising that HBO hasn't stepped in it either at this point.
There's plenty of people who have seen this now that it definitely has made its way to HBO somehow.
Think, yeah. I'm sure they're kind of someone somewhere shaking their head being like, man, we have to pay our lawyers to send a cease and desist about this. Oh boy. So, all right. Yeah. Well, hey, that's it for the board game news. Let's move on. Talk about some video game news a little bit here. I just want to give a quick update that the Raising Kratos documentary we talked about a couple weeks ago about the production of God of War, it now has a release date, which is May 10th. So shortly after this episode of the podcast comes out, you'll be able to watch Raising Kratos on the PlayStation YouTube channel. I will definitely be watching it. I don't know if you've ever, dear listener, watched the documentary Grounded about the making of The Last of Us, but that was pretty solid. So I'm hoping that this one will be good as well. It looks like it actually has a much more actual documentary feel than Grounded did. Grounded was very much people sitting at Naughty Dog talking about making the game. This seems like it's much more following people where they're going, mostly Corey and all that stuff. So it looks cool. Hopefully that is going to be excellent when it comes out in just a few days here.
Nice.
Next story, Monster Hunter World is super popular, Josh.
I've heard.
Do you know how
told?
I know. Do you know how popular it is?
I don't. I knew I could have clicked the link, but I figured I would let you tell me all the news.
Would it surprise you? Because I knew it surprised me to learn that Monster Hunter World is now the best-selling game in Capcom history.
No, it wouldn't surprise me because I'm sure it's in Japan, and that's the only reason why a PlayStation is successful. I'm sorry. I was just holding for a shock and awe from our listeners.
Yes, the reason the PlayStation is successful is because of the 12 million copies of
sold in Japan.
Sold in Japan of Monster Hunter World. So
that's it. That's the only reason. No, I mean, it doesn't surprise me because Monster Hunter, to my knowledge, has always been a big game, but never in North America.
Right. Yep.
And I've always known that. So it doesn't necessarily surprise me. Now, if you told me like this wasn't in Japan, like for the most part, that would be more surprising to me. But I as a blind guess, I would imagine most of the sales are in the Japanese market.
Yeah, I think that this game really is the one that kind of broke Monster Hunter out of being a more niche game. It definitely, I think, pushed it to more mainstream appeal. Because I knew Monster Hunter was popular, but I always assumed it was popular with a very select group because it typically had been on handheld. So like we haven't had a console Monster Hunter in a really long time. And maybe that's part of the reason it got so popular again. But I was a little surprised with, you know, when you think of Capcom and you think of Mega Man and Resident Evil and Street Fighter and all of those things, you know, and then you find out that, no, Monster Hunter World, best-selling, well, I should say, it has shipped the most units of any game. That's obviously not the same as sold through. But
when I think of it, so I bought this on Xbox because it was like one of the first games that took advantage of the Xbox One X. So I was like, oh, I got to see this. But I've played the Monster Hunter games on the DS and the 3DS before, and I always thought in the PSP maybe.
Right. Yeah, PSP.
I always thought while playing those games that it would be so much better on a console, like a bigger console. And so I think for a lot of people, maybe like this Monster Hunter World was like the logical step and the step a lot of people were waiting to get before they jumped into the full release. Because I know it was on the Wii U, but for the market, that's still a lot of people who did not get to play it.
Yeah. Well, and on the PSP, that was where the claw grip got developed, was people trying to play Monster Hunter on PSP and trying to be able to access the right stick, the face buttons, and the button on the trigger, like the claw grip developed to be able to play that way. So, or I'm pretty certain that was the big push for that. So yeah. But anyway, Monster Hunter, it's still popular. I assume we'll get another Monster Hunter in the future.
I'm sure.
So, in other news, Riot employees have walked out over the company's lawsuit policy. So, Riot Games, the makers of that, one game that a lot of people like a lot called League of Legends. A couple people play that game, I've heard. They have had it's been a tumultuous year or so for them with lawsuits and people accusing it of being a hostile work environment. They've really had some rough times in the last year or so about the work environment and just what it's like to be a Riot employee. So over the last few weeks, so this comes from our friends over at Game Informer, they wrote a story talking about how Riot Games has found itself combating its own employees as the company seeks to enact and enforce policies that prevent employees from suing them in sexual harassment and sexual assault lawsuits. So basically, they're saying that if you have an issue as an employee with Riot, your option is arbitration. You cannot sue us. If you're an employee and you feel wronged, you have to go to arbitration. That is your option. Employees have said this isn't okay, and they walked out. Josh, Obviously, this is a complicated situation. Obviously, employee work agreements and collective bargaining, which they really don't have because I'm sure they're not. Well, in general, we talk about how games isn't unionized at all. This is something that is a complicated situation. You work for a company, right? You have a job. You work for someone.
I'm unionized though.
Yeah, you are. Okay, so you have other specific things that you would do in this situation. I
can relate though. I have not always been unionized in my jobs.
So what do you think about all this? How the gaming press has gotten much more invested in not just games and how they turn out at the end, but the process of making games and what it's like to make games. When you hear that a company who makes one of the most popular games in the world, specifically when looking at cases of sexual harassment and sexual assault, says, hey, employees, you're not allowed to sue us. You can go to arbitration and that's it. What does that signal to you? What does that tell you? How does that make you feel as a gamer?
I don't know how it makes me feel as a gamer, Kyle, but I can tell you how it makes me feel as a human being.
Okay, that sounds great too.
So I've been on both sides of the table of this as far as business aspect goes. I've been management for a company. I've also been on the other side. Even management, I can tell you, even management has problems with these things. If you are a company who are enforcing policies that prevent employees from suing them for anything, whether it's sexual harassment, sexual assault, it's a very aggressive thing for a company to do. And it makes people question why they're doing it. And unless we're sitting in their lawyer's office, we don't know why they're doing that. So what do you do? What does the media do? What do people do? They try to empathize, but they're not empathizing with the company. And I'm not saying that I am either. But your immediate response is to say, well, what are they hiding? Why are they like... If you look at it on paper, you go, if a company says I can't sue them for sexual harassment or sexual assault, what are they doing to their employees? And I don't know that there's a good answer on either end of that. Sometimes it could be because the company was subject to a bunch of false lawsuits and it cost them a lot of money in the past. Some could be working for some not great people who are like, I have a history of this, or there's been a history of this, and I want to stop this. Or they're threatened by the Me Too movement, and they think that they can't do the things they used to do, so they want to protect themselves against that. If you're going to take an employee who feels like they were sexually assaulted into arbitration, you hold all the cards. You're not giving them much of a choice. You're essentially taking them to a room and saying, we'll give you this or you're going to get nothing and we're going to fire you. And that's a very blanket way to say something like that. Like obviously other things are being said, in arbitration and things like that, but that's the extreme version of it. And as an employee, I wouldn't feel protected. And I would assume that that's what a situation would be like in a closed room. So while I'm a union man now, it's a lot different for me as far as I know I have someone whose job it is to protect me and my fellow coworkers, which also gets abused by people everywhere across the country.
Just like any system.
I don't know if you guys have Stop and Shop grocery stores where you are, but we have a Stop and Shops, and they just went on strike because they were not getting treated. They were not getting the money they wanted, and Stop and Shop made $2 billion in profit last year. So they went on strike, and while they were on strike, they lost hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars just for 5 days of a company being on strike.
Right.
So if these riot people want to make a stand and they're not unionized, I still 100% support what they're doing. And hopefully the message gets through to Riot that something needs to change, which it doesn't always. But someone said, one of the quotes at the bottom, they said, "I don't think management cares that we're out here, but they care that people know they don't care." And that's a smart, well thought, put together statement. And it's really easy for people to get mad in these situations too, especially employees. So the fact that there's people that are out there standing together, people who might not have even been a victim of what's happening, I think it says a lot for, well, one, for them, but two, like you said at the beginning, like the game industry is finally being taken seriously. And now I think we've seen stuff like this in the past 9 months because people are starting to take notice of the gaming industry.
Right.
And I think we're just going to keep seeing these maybe terrible situations that have been happening before in an industry where people don't necessarily know where their next job is. So they're not inclined to necessarily complain about something that should be complained about.
Right. And I mean, dear listener, more than likely, depending on where you work at, you likely only can go to arbitration with whoever your employer is as well, because it's a pretty common practice. Like that is a very, very common thing. And as a consumer, almost every consumer agreement you sign basically says that if you have an issue, you cannot sue whoever this is that you have purchased this product from. You can only go to arbitration with them. It is very common. So they are not the only ones who are fighting this fight. And I mean, to be clear, there can be some benefits to arbitration. Obviously, it's much more streamlined. It's way less expensive for the person involved with it. It increases privacy for, obviously the company wants that, but also for you individually, increasing privacy for you. There can be some benefits to arbitration, but it also definitely is going to be advantageous to people when they then get to help pick the arbitrator, the people who do the arbitration and all of that good stuff, which often happens in those situations. So, and you know, this isn't the only company. There was more stuff happening with Quantic Dream that was just developing. I didn't have a ton of time to dig deep into that, so I didn't want to necessarily talk about it on this podcast to be ill-informed or not represented correctly. But it does seem like these types of stories just continue to happen in the gaming industry, and I think it's just a product of the amount of money that's in the industry now and the amount of transparency that we're seeing with social media and everything these days. So I think these stories are probably going to continue to happen more, not less, as folks begin to stand up for themselves a little bit. So yeah. On a happier note, Josh.
Yes.
Microsoft has a patent that is pointing potentially to a Braille controller. So, you know, Microsoft has made a big push more recently with like the Xbox adaptive controller and just really focusing on the so everyone can game and trying to ensure that barriers are broken down so gaming can be more accessible to more people than it ever has before. And now there seems to be this patent that has come out for a controller that has basically a touchpad that raises Braille characters on the back of the controller for feedback from the game. So exactly how this would work is not 100% clear. It's not sure if it would be raising it for the dialogue or what's going on there. But different ways to tell inputs, button prompts, all of that kind of stuff seems like what this controller is aimed at to do. And whether or not this ever becomes to market? Who knows? But the fact that they have worked enough on this to patent this, I think is just another way to show that Microsoft really is committed to trying to make gaming as accessible to as many people as possible. And I think that's just another thing to really show they've made some excellent strides over there since that initial launch of the Xbox, or the initial reveal of the Xbox One X. And the company's basically done a 180. I am rooting for them, and they seem to be doing all of the right things. And this is really exciting. I think this is another really, really excellent move from them. What are your thoughts on this new controller, potentially?
Not much more than you said. I mean, it's awesome. Like, good for them. And I'm sure there's a small audience of gamers who are asking for this, but they understand how important it is to get that group involved. And I think that's great.
Absolutely.
Good on them. So I hope everyone else follows their lead on that.
Absolutely. It's very, very cool. Other news, Epic Games has announced that they have acquired Rocket League developer Psyonix. So looks like old Microsoft is not the only company buying other companies and other game developers. Psyonix now coming under the Epic Games label. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I don't care. But there was a very small group of the internet who was very mad. I don't know why. I think I know why, because it's Epic versus Steam store battle. I think that's fine. Good for them. I mean, Epic's making a bigger name for themselves, and I've always been an Epic Games supporter. I've never had any strong opinions one way or the other for or against them. So, good for them. Psyonix, I mean, they're a good studio. They have a lot of potential, and as far as I'm concerned, they're an up and coming developer. So good on Epic for grabbing them before Sony or Microsoft could.
Yeah, I think
that was even an option.
Yeah, I do think it's kind of interesting that, I mean, they have made other games in the past, but for the most part, it's similar to Microsoft when they bought Mojang, who basically had one game.
Yeah.
And now here's Epic buying Psyonix that basically is just Rocket League. Maybe they'll make another game. Maybe this will help them staff up and do other things, but it just seems that they're really buying Rocket League, basically, is what they're doing.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what else they make that. It's just Rocket League right now, right?
Yeah, which is the sequel to Supersonic Acrobatic Rocket Powered Battle Cars.
Yes, good job.
Thanks. So yeah, but that's kind of where they're at with that. So, but hey, we'll see what happens. They say they're still going to support it on Steam, and it'll come to the Epic Store in late 2019. They've been a bit cagey about whether it'll eventually come off Steam for sale. They initially said it would, then they kind of backed off that. So we'll see what happens. But they said no matter what, they will support the game on Steam for the duration of the life of the game. So if you have it on Steam, no fears in the least, it will be supported. So that's good. And some final quick hitters here to kind of wrap things up. PlayStation has announced their next State of Play, which will be happening shortly after our episode releases this Thursday, May 9th. It's going to be a short little State of Play, only about 10 minutes long or so, though apparently the one in Japan is 15, according to what some people are saying. So we'll see if that's true or not, or if there's just a mistranslation there. But we're going to see Medieval. They're going to get some updates on that. They are going to be showing off a new game. And according to many, many rumors, there is going to be the re-reveal of a third-party game that was revealed a while ago and has since gone... They don't know. We'll have to wait and see. And it's since gone a bit quiet. So, Josh.
Yeah.
Medieval. That's fine. Okay, we knew that game was coming out sometime this year.
Yeah, I had it on the PlayStation 1. It was good.
Yep. That was good. That was fine. What do you think maybe this new game might be? Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, because they said new game, which implies that we haven't seen it before. So everyone's like making these rumors about like The Last of Us or the Square Enix Avengers game. Or I'm like, these are not new games. We've seen them. So I don't know.
Yeah. I think the big money right now is on a new Ratchet and Clank. That game, a new Ratchet and Clank, has been rumored for some time. And we don't know, that game was developed by Insomniac's South Carolina studio, if I recall correctly. And I don't know how much that studio was involved with Spider-Man. So maybe they are working on a sequel to that, or a second Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Ratchet and Clank on PS4 a ton, so I would be down for that. There's also some thoughts that potentially this could be whatever Blue Point is working on. That has been rumored for some time as well. So we'll see what exactly that new game is. And the re-reveal, most signs are pointing towards we're going to see Final Fantasy VII Remake, probably a teaser trailer of some sort with a hey, see the full reveal at Square's E3 showcase, just based off of some leaks, but that might not be true. Who knows?
Do you think there's any excitement behind that game anymore?
I don't necessarily. I think if it comes out and looks good, I think it could potentially restoke some enthusiasm about it. But I think for the most part, right now, until you see more of it and ideally see some of it with a, hey, it's coming out soon, I think that most of the enthusiasm for that game has dwindled pretty significantly.
Okay.
That's my thought. I don't know that it's still there. But if it comes out and looks good, or they re-reveal it and it looks good and I can see it, people getting really excited again because people really like that game. So
yes.
And finally, in news that's about 3 years later than it should be, EA is expanding their subscription service. EA Access will be coming to PlayStation this summer. So all of the PlayStation folks who have been wanting and wringing their hands hoping to get EA Access this summer will now be able to get that. Yeah, I don't know what else there's to say about that. Do you have any thoughts on EA Access on PS4?
I'm happy for Seth.
I'm happy for Seth as well.
Pretty much it. It's fine. I mean, it's something that I've had since it came out. I wouldn't say that I am actively using it, but for $30 a year, I am very happy with my investment, especially with just the 10 hours of
preview
game trial you can play 7 days before a game comes out. So, I mean, clearly it didn't teach me my lesson about Anthem, but I still got it. But I get to play the new Madden, the new FIFA, the new Tiger. Well, not Tiger, it's the new Golf if they ever come out with another one. Hockey, all these games, 7 days before they release, which gives me a much more informed opinion on what I want to do. So,
for most sports games, 10 hours is about all I need.
Yeah, I agree with you on that too. But even for like Battlefield 1, I got to play a good chunk of the story.
Right.
And Battlefield 4. What the heck is the new one called? Battlefield 1?
Battlefield 5?
5. Battlefield 5. Yes. Even games like Unravel and stuff like that. So this is a great selection. I'm happy for the Sony boys.
So, yeah. Eventually they get there. I think, honestly, a lot of this probably, and maybe I'm wrong, I feel like we have this announcement. I think we're going to get a bigger announcement about crossplay soon. And crossplay is going to become... I feel like Sony is starting to put the pieces into place. So when they reveal the PS5, all of these things are already there. They maybe haven't done them most of this generation, but when they come to release or announce the PS5, they can say, but look, it has all the stuff that you want, even though we just started doing it.
If they come out with the PS5 and they say it has crossplay, that's the smartest decision they can make. If they come out and say it doesn't have crossplay, that's the stupidest decision they can make.
So, yeah, we'll see. I think that we'll see a more updated conversation about that soonish. Maybe this summer or something like that. But yeah, we'll see. I do think they're heading that way, and they just want all those pieces in place. So when they announce the PS5, that won't be something you can necessarily hold against them anymore. So. Right.
There'll be a different scapegoat. It's for people to hate Sony.
Exactly. I mean, there are enough things, so it's cool.
Well, everyone has their own.
Absolutely. So, all right. Well, hey, let's jump into the topic of the show. Josh, it's almost summer, man.
Yeah, it was 70 today. It was crazy.
So, what are your gaming plans for this summer? What are you hoping to do? What are you hoping to play? What are you just video games, board games? Kind of what's the plan, man?
I wish I had a solid plan to tell you. Summer means days for me. That's great. That means more and less gaming time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So now I have a good amount of gaming. Well, I have some gaming time. I can game from when my son goes down at 8 p.m. to whenever I want to stay up. and I game in the morning before I go to work for a couple hours. That will be gone.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also won't stay up late because I'll be getting up very early. So really in the summer, my gaming time goes from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. to 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. So the gaming time gets a lot more strict. And for me, my son is 2, and that means he's very active, which means a lot more time outside. So my gaming time will be tougher, to be honest with you, in the summer. But I don't mind that so much. Do you know what I mean?
No, I understand that.
More time with the family. But I have a very great wife who knows if I say like I want to play such and such a game with Kyle on Friday night at 8, she'll let me play all night, which is awesome.
That is awesome.
So Fridays and Saturdays for me, I think, is what I'm looking for gaming. And then, we have some games on the horizon, which we can talk about. But what about you? What does summer mean to you?
Yeah, so summer for me is gaming. Yeah, it's kind of the same boat. I actually game way less in the summer. Mostly I game more during the week and less on weekends. It tends to be because there's a lot of projects that happen on weekends in my household. And my partner is very big into woodworking and all sorts of those things. So it's actually, we have very interesting, if you look at the typical gender norms of our household, we basically flip them 100% on their head. Because there was one Christmas where I bought her a router and a jigsaw and something else, and she bought me like a cutting board and knives. I mean, when it comes to the gender norms of our house, they're very different.
Yeah.
But so because of that, though, a lot of the furniture in our house, she and I have built together.
Nice.
So we are actually building all new cabinets for our board games right now. So that is the current summer project we're working on. We just started, and that will be like most weekends will be dedicated to that project of, I just started doing some of the priming today, so we usually won't work on it during the week too often, but that's kind of like what we do on weekends in the summer, and the way we spend to get time together is doing those projects. So 7 p.m. will roll around or 8 p.m. will roll around, and it's time to be done with the project for the day. Usually I just don't want to play video games anymore. I just kind of want to watch a movie or something that is even less intensive than playing video games. So I tend to play a little bit more during the week than the weekends. But yeah, I think it's a good thing. Kind of helps keep me a little balanced and all of that good stuff. And I think it seems like for the most part, this summer is going to cooperate about not overloading us with games.
Yeah.
So just looking really briefly at games that are coming out here soonish, starting in May, in a week or so, Rage 2 comes out, which I am actually really looking forward to Rage 2. I hope it's good. It is a game that looks like kind of just dumb video game fun.
Yeah, it looks awesome.
Excuse me. So I'm looking forward to that. So that'll definitely be something that I will be jumping into. And it sounds like you're looking forward to Rage 2 as well.
Yeah, I really am. I've been watching a lot of gameplay, and the more I watch, the better it looks. So I'm very interested in that one.
As we look at this list of games coming out, is there anything else in May that you're excited about or looking forward to playing?
Well, I have a real interest in A Plague Tale, which also comes out the same day as Rage 2.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that it's a game I want to get day one, but it's a beautiful looking game, and I like the story of the game is unique, and it looks very cinematic. So I'm really interested in that one. We can't overlook Bubsy, right?
I kind of forgot this was a thing again.
Yeah, no, that's going to be terrible.
Yeah.
I don't know why they decided to make that, but they did. And then Warhammer Chaos Bane is a game that is on my radar, which is basically a Warhammer's version of Diablo.
Oh, okay.
Which it looks really good from everything I've seen so far. So I'm keeping my eye on that, and I wanted to want Super Mario Maker 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in my heart I do want it, but I don't think I can. I'm not going to get it because I played Super Mario Maker a good amount, but then you eventually hit that. What am I doing with this game at this point? Instead of just making levels, like, who am I making levels for? Okay, I made a level. I had my wife play it, and she's like, "That was too hard." I'm like, "That was the easy one."
Well, since I am in the Dreams Early Access, I believe that means you are in the Dreams Early Access. So you could just make Super Mario Maker 2 in Dreams, probably.
Well, maybe I'll boot it up and see what's going on. I think Team Sonic Racing is a fun game. I don't know that I'll be buying it. But it's cool that it's going to be out there. I'm still really envious of you VR people. There's a lot of games I want to play on PSVR. I don't know that I'll ever get to play them. And then I think the last big one for the summer I'm excited for, probably is the game I'm the most excited for, is Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3.
Yeah, that looks great.
So I can't wait for that. I wish it was on a
not Switch
high definition console, but I think the art style will be fine on the Switch. So
yeah, the art style looks like it'll be a good fit.
Yeah, so I'm okay, and I'll probably play it more in the summer because I'll be able to bring it to the beach or play it in bed.
Right,
not the beach house.
Slaying on the beach in the sand.
Not the beach.
Just set the Switch down on the sand, and then take off the Joy-Cons and just play it that way.
The sand will probably cool the back of the Switch.
That's true. That's very true.
What about you? Anything else for the foreseeable months ahead?
So my plan actually is to play a lot of VR this summer. That's kind of the goal. I have a lot of VR games that I have started or dabbled in, but I haven't gotten as far in as I would like. So that's actually the goal, is to spend some more time there. And yeah, like I talked about, obviously Rage 2 is something I'm looking forward to. Blood and Truth comes out the end of May for VR, and I'm definitely looking forward to playing that one, as well as Everybody's Golf VR. Donnie got back on the VR train, I think, mostly because Everybody's Golf is coming. So we'll definitely be trying those out. But after that, when we roll into June, I'm interested potentially in Judgment. I like the Yakuza games. I think they're fun. I have a good time playing them. But I don't know if Judgment will be a day one get for me. I would definitely like to play it at some point, though. So we'll see if that's, end of June rolls around and I'm done with my Rage 2 and I'm finally done with Days Gone and everything else. Maybe I'll jump in there. But, otherwise in June, there's not a lot that's really jumping out at me or calling me. And, when you look at July, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 is definitely the thing I'm most up on. I am interested in Wolfenstein Youngblood.
Yeah.
I have enjoyed, the machine games, Wolfenstein games. I've had a lot of fun with them. Wolfenstein 2 I thought was phenomenal. I loved that game. And obviously this is a little bit of a smaller story in that universe told, I think, 30 years after the events of Wolf 2. But so I'm interested in it. I don't know if I'm going to get it. I think I'll wait for reviews, see how long it is, all that good stuff. I know it's I think a less expensive game, maybe I think $40, which is kind of maybe making me lean towards potentially giving it a whirl when it comes out. And, if we end in August, are you interested in Control? Do you have any desire to play that?
It looks interesting. I really want to see more. And I don't know if it's a me thing or not, but I'd watched a recent version of it, and it didn't look like a complete game. I don't know what it was. So I'm not sure what's going on with that game, but it looks more and more like a tech demo than a video game to me.
Gotcha.
So the more, I'm intrigued by the concept of the game. It's basically like what you wanted to do in Force Unleashed without all the lightsaber combat. So I'm intrigued by it, but hopefully we'll see some more before it comes out.
And one game that's not on this list that I'm pretty certain is coming out in August is Outer Worlds.
Yeah, Outer Worlds, and then the Journey to the Forbidden Planet or Last Planet or whatever it was also something I was interested in.
So Outer Worlds is up there, and I am interested in Astral Chains as well. I like Platinum as a developer, so that Switch exclusive is looking pretty sweet to me. Hopefully it still continues to look sweet. I'm excited about it. So that is something that is definitely kind of on my list. But really, between June, July, August, maybe 3 games that I think I'm probably going to play day one, maybe.
Yeah.
So kind of a not bad summer. Obviously, things could be announced, things could change, but right now I'm appreciating what seems to be a downturn as we roll into summer. Are there any board games you're hoping to get played, or how are you going to handle your board gaming this summer?
Well, because it's nights, there's probably a higher likelihood of getting a board game in than a video game. Like if I'm going to be spending, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. with my wife, it's more likely we'll watch something or play a board game. So, I mean, hopefully I can tackle a bunch of my backlog. We have a bunch of games we want to play, so I don't have anything specifically lined up. Just when we can play something, we will play something, and when I can play it when we can play with our friends, we will do the same.
Yeah. Do you have any Kickstarters that you're getting this summer, or are supposed to be delivered this summer?
Oh boy, like coming in. I mean, sure. I'm sure I got a bunch of stuff coming in this summer.
Because we should be getting Unbroken soon. Yeah,
Unbroken in a couple of weeks, but Animal Kingdoms, Shipwreck Arcana. I don't remember when Tidal Blades is supposed to release.
I think Tidal Blades is until fall.
October, yeah. So, I mean, I have a bunch of games that I'm still waiting on. We should hopefully be getting Gravity Warfare soon.
Oh, yeah, that should be shipping here pretty soon.
So, there's games. The thing I like about Kickstarter is that I kind of like being surprised when I come home and
I got a game.
Something is here. So there'll definitely be some Kickstarters coming in. I'm just not entirely sure which ones.
Yeah, I'm really excited because, we talked about Unbroken, Gravity Warfare we should be getting soon. Edge of Darkness I should be getting this summer, which I'm very excited about. And I'm also really excited because tomorrow night from when we record this, I have my first board game group.
Nice.
I know, so I'm very excited. I think we're going to start a little lighter and probably starting with Reef and King Domino, I think, for the first night.
Oh, nice. Those are great games.
Yeah, start a little lighter. I know one of the people in the group is super into games and excited. He happens to be a listener as well. But their partner, I don't know how into games they are. So I didn't want to start too overwhelming in those scenarios. So so you'll start getting more regular updates of me playing games with 4 people. It's going to be great.
I'm jealous, man.
I'm super excited. So look for updates and my thoughts on those games probably next week. It'll be grand. All right. So, hey, that's our gaming plans for this summer. Dear listener, we would love to know your gaming plans for this summer. So what games are you most excited about? What games are you looking forward to? How are you going to decide when you play, what you play? Video games, board games, we would love to know. And with that, Josh, I believe we have some listener questions. Is that correct?
We do. Would you believe it?
I believe it.
Okay, good. Because it's true. Via our Discord, playing Nintendo, the Don himself singles me out. Sorry, Kyle. He says,
that's fine. I just won't answer.
Josh, how are you enjoying Days Gone? He has 2 other questions. He then goes on specifically, so I don't want to answer it because he says he wants to know specifically something. What do you think about how often it's being updated so far and how much it already has changed and could change 2 to 3 to 6 to 12 months from now? We see it with so many games already with this gen, with games constantly evolving. He does ask, and he does continue, do either of you think reviews be updated annually or scores dropped overall if they can't consistently reflect or grow as the game itself grows? Well, I will answer your second question first. I am not aware of any changes. So to me, I guess you could consider me blissfully ignorant because I haven't experienced, to my knowledge, any of the changes.
All the changes, I'm pretty positive, have been bug fixes at this point.
Okay, and they're bug fixes. It's fine. I only ran into one bug that I know of, and I will talk about that because it did affect my gameplay in a way that is typical of Josh. So for me, that's fine. And if it consistently changes the next 2 to 12 months or longer, good. If they find problems, let's fix them. That's how everything should be. So awesome. I love it. It's a great trend in video gaming. So how am I enjoying Days Gone? Well, I'll say it's not a bad game. In fact, when I started playing it, I had a lot of Horizon Zero Dawn memories. It is not Horizon Zero Dawn, but there's definitely some aspects of the game that I could consider similar to Horizon Zero Dawn in how I appreciated that game. I can appreciate certain parts of Days Gone as well. The loading time is something that I just have to get over. But when I'm trying to play it, I have a certain amount of time I can play it, and the loading time is definitely taking away from some of that time, especially the load up.
The load in is very long. It's very long. I usually turn on my PS4 and then go do something and come back.
Yeah. That being said, that's a minor gripe. The thing that I didn't have an issue with, and the first part was on my end. It told me the game was ready, and I'm just used to seeing a loading bar when it's installing in the bottom. Because like I turned it on, I let it install for hours. I came back and said it was ready. I was like, oh, great. So I started and I got to the camp, the first camp you get to, and then it was like, you can't leave. I'm like, what do you mean I can't leave?
Still downloading the rest of the game?
Yeah, it's a download failure or something weird like that. So I thought that I was experiencing a glitch, not realizing because it didn't tell me that it wasn't fully downloaded. So that happened. So whatever, I came back to it. And then I think something happened from there that affected my games, which might be the bug, or it might not be. So I joined the game back up the next, 8 hours later. I went back to the camp. I get a mission, and I go to get my bike, and it's not letting me use my bike. I'm like, okay, and I can't get on it. There's a big X over it, and I can't do anything. And I'm like, okay. So I go to the first mission, and it's like get an alternator or something, fuel injector or whatever the tool I have to get.
Yep.
It's like, oh, I must need this from a motorcycle. So I go back to the camp, motorcycle's not there. And I'm like, oh, I guess I'm just not supposed to get my motorcycle yet. So I walk to the next 3 missions. But every time he talks to everybody, he says, all right, I'm going to take a ride there. I'll see you when I get back. I'm like, we can take a ride on what, buddy? We don't have a motorcycle. So I did 4 more missions without a motorcycle. And I thought to myself, okay, this is really like Horizon Zero Dawn because I'm traversing the whole game on foot. But I thought this was, I find myself like walking on roads. And I'm like, why am I walking on roads?
Oh
so
my
then
gosh.
he gives me another mission and he goes, yeah, okay. I'm just going to ride there. I'm like, you and your riding things. You're not riding anything. So I stopped. So I opened my map, which I don't like how I have to access my map through like a menu to then hit the R1 button to open a map.
You don't have to do that at all.
It says, open your map.
Swipe right on the D-pad. Swipe right on the touchscreen.
It says touch. It says press the touch screen. And then
no,
if
you literally just swipe right on it, it'll just open the map. Don't even push it on it. Just swipe right.
They could give me better instructions. I also didn't know that left D-pad heals myself. I have to keep going into my menu.
No, just left D-pad, dude.
Yeah.
But no, for the map, just swipe right on the touchpad and it'll open the map.
Yeah, I hate touchpads, by the way. So yeah, I opened up my map by not doing that, and then I saw, oh, there's a motorcycle icon. Let's follow it. It's only 1,700 meters away or whatever I'm running. Oh, where does it take me back to? The camp. Oh, and what's this under the tree? Oh, this motorcycle that used to be there but wasn't when I went back. And then I got on the bike. So I saw that it let me get on the bike. And then I just shut the game off because I was so mad. And then I loaded up Devil May Cry 5, which is a totally different game. So that being said, I was very frustrated by that. But like I said, that could be the bug or it could be me or both. I'm probably leaning more towards me. And it reminds me of my Breath of the Wild adventures. Doing things the hard way. So I really feel like for me, I whatever it is, like that didn't take my interest away from the game. I enjoy the game. It's a fun game. I like the combat. I don't love that I'm always running out of ammo. I don't love that. But that's the realism aspect of it.
Right.
I like having to worry about finding a new melee weapon because my machete just broke, or having to sneak up, or going to sneak up on one zombie and then realize there's 4 others like stalking right around it. I like the aspect of like the little children zombies that stalk you. I like
the newts, I think they're called.
Yeah, the newts. Yeah, I like the nests burning. I like almost all of the game, to be honest with you. The only thing I didn't love at the beginning of the game is I don't think the controls on the motorcycle are tight.
They get better when you upgrade your bike.
Or when I drive one, other than
when you actually drive it. But they definitely get tighter when you upgrade your bike. When you get new tires and improve your suspension and stuff, it gets better.
And I don't love the crafting system. I know that was something that Donnie was talking about in the Discord that he was hearing complaints about. Only because I don't like that you have to go all the way back to do these things. And I also don't like opening up a trunk of a car and seeing I can't collect something.
Right, because you're already full.
Because I'm full, and I don't necessarily know where to use those things.
Yeah.
That's frustrating to me. But other than that, I'm enjoying my time with it, and it looks great.
It does look good. It's a pretty nice looking game, that's for sure.
Yeah. And then do either of us think reviews be updated annually or scores dropped overall? And we've talked about this before, right? Like, I don't know that there's a good answer for that. When a game company releases a game, they expect it to get reviewed.
Yep.
So they know that the quality of the game they're shipping will be what they're judged on. And I still think that is important. I know that we talk about review scores not necessarily meaning too much anymore, but if it means holding game companies accountable for the product they release when it's released, I do still think reviews for games like this and Anthem are important. However, I'm fine if they revisit them, but it shouldn't be erasing the mistakes that the game made when it came out.
I disagree with you slightly on that.
That's okay. That's what this is for.
Right, but in the sense that I think if they're going to use review scores, that there should be some sort of obligation to update reviews. Because I think about movies, right? When you watch a movie and the movie gets reviewed, whether I watch the movie the day it comes out in theaters or 3 years later on demand or on Netflix, that review is still true to what that movie is, to what that experience is.
Sure.
So when I go in 3 years after that movie is out to say, hey, do I want to watch this? And I go look at, what's the rating on IMDb? What's the rating on Rotten Tomatoes? What's the rating on all that? That is still 100% relevant to the movie I'm going to watch 3 years later. That's
true.
Not true for game scores. And that's my issue with game scores, that if you are going to continue to score games, I believe games that scores need to be updated when games are updated. Now, maybe not as regularly, because obviously game updates can happen, but when big patches come out for games like Anthem, like The Division, all of that, I believe that a review should be revisited, and maybe the score stays the same because the patch is more basically says, hey, everything in this patch was more of the same, so our review stays the same. That's fine. But I do think it's important that, the experience you have with Destiny 2 today is super different than if you go look at the review score for Destiny 2 when it came out.
But does a reviewer have to now play all of Destiny 2 again? It's an obligation because they reviewed Destiny 2 when it came out. Why would we put that on a reviewer when there's arguably 2 times as many hours to play Destiny 2 now than it was when it came out?
Sure, I'm just talking about the relevancy of review scores.
Right.
I'm saying if you're not going to update them, and you're right, you might say that's way too much work. That's fine. They don't have review scores. So
then, that's okay. So like if you are tasked with reviewing Destiny 2, you play it, and let's just say you give it a 6.5 out of 10. That's your.
Wait, on your scale, what's your 6.5? What's
that's
that
bad.
Mean? That's 6.5 is bad. Okay, so it's a bad game. So what would a 4.5 be then?
Just an abomination.
Okay. So what's a 2.5?
It's not even a game.
Okay.
It's Microsoft Paint. I'm kidding, obviously. So you're saying that if you aren't going to revisit Destiny 2 in a year, you shouldn't even be able to review the game?
I am saying that for me personally, review scores only hold weight if the review is updated to be relevant with the current state of the game. I recognize that by saying that might not be a possibility or realistic.
Right.
But what I'm saying is then...
But you're saying all or nothing.
Kind of, yeah. Because I don't know... Now, to be clear, I don't run any company that does any reviews worth of anything, right? They are going to tell me all of the reasons, I'm sure, why that's not possible. There's too many games, there's too many hours, yada, yada, yada. Fine. Totally understand that. But then what is the better way to accurately represent the quality of the content in the game if I buy Destiny 2 a year later? We get so stuck on we review things. Okay. But if that doesn't seem to be work anymore, and I think a lot of people would say it's not working as well as it should anymore for video games, at least, what's the better option? I don't get paid enough to figure out that better option, but there are people who work at really big websites who get paid a lot of money that they should be able to figure out a better way to do it.
Sure. Yeah.
That's my thoughts on it.
It's tricky. I don't know. I know what you're saying. I see what you're saying. I don't know that Siri,
Siri has thoughts.
Siri wants needs to be quiet.
Her thoughts on this.
I don't know that if a game releases not complete or poor, that it's a responsibility of a reviewer to have to go back for a company who essentially potentially released an incomplete, broken game. Like,
absolutely, they have.
Why does Activision get to make Destiny an 8.5 now instead of a 6.5?
I agree
in those aspects.
Right, I agree 100% that the folks who review games, there is no obligation for them to do that at all. I 100% agree.
But I do agree. If I go buy Destiny 2 today, I should be able to look at a review that is reflecting what the game is today. I do agree with that.
Yeah, and I think you're going to be very hard pressed to find that.
No, we need robots to do reviews. I think that's the only way around that.
And a part of me thinks, though, that if you look at a site like IGN or some of these bigger sites, they have people who are still playing these games. They have podcasts about these games. Yeah. So you can't tell me you don't have people who are still playing them. They definitely are. And you're right. It might not work for every game. Maybe it's as simple as people, and this was hard because I think part of this is on consumers recognizing that if I look at a review for a video game that is 2 years old, that obviously is reflective of the game 2 years ago.
Right.
You know, and maybe there's a simple line that should go at the top of reviews that say, this review is reflective of the game as it stood on XYZ date based on patch, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just, and you're right. There's no obligation from companies that review games to do that. I just think as a service to their readers, something like that would be nice.
Yeah. No, I agree. Thanks, Donnie, for your question that turned into a topic that took up a good chunk of the back end. Splig at Dopelicious on Twitter says, just got Sub Fables.
Yeah.
And want to color it before I play with the girls. Then he asks us, have any experience painting / coloring pieces? I'm just going to get a marker set and do it. Ain't nobody got time to paint. Well, I will tell you this. You are your own human being. You can do whatever you want.
You purchased that game. You do what you want with it.
I have never painted and I have never colored pieces, but I am going to tell you, do not do what you are planning on doing. Just paint one piece at a time. Take your time. If you really want to paint them, just do yourself a favor. You'll feel better about it when you're done. Take some time, learn how to paint. Even get your daughters to help you, maybe. Mm-hmm. Even if they don't look great. A marker set just sounds terrible to me.
They could be paint markers.
Okay, well.
I'm just saying, if they're paint markers, it might work. That's a possibility. I had a brief time in my life that I played Warhammer Fantasy. So I did paint a high elves army, and I am someone who I consider myself to be reasonably creative and okay when it comes to drawing and painting and things like that. I'm okay. Not great. I'm okay. Man, was that challenging. That's one of the hardest things I've ever had to try to do is to paint that set and make it look good. Because the fine border control and how little all those things are, and then when you look at how good some people are at it, blows my mind. So yes, I would like to do it. I just now am very worried about wrecking things and making them look worse than they do when they're just the gray plastic that they come as.
Can you just like clean that paint off and do it again?
You can. You definitely can. Yeah. Really quick, have you seen this whole phenomena with painting or sharpening the edges of your tokens?
No, I'll have to look.
So yeah, I think there's a pretty big thread on the board game Reddit that people either the edges of their punched tokens, their cardboard tokens, some people do them just in black, but others will do them to match like the edge of whatever the top of the token is. The difference that it makes in looking at the pictures of the games, pretty significant.
Oh, wow.
I don't necessarily want to get into it, but I always look at those pictures and then go, man, that seems like a really good idea.
I typically avoid Reddit, so maybe I'll have to cautiously explore Reddit.
Yeah, just Google it. You'll be able to find it.
I'm not Googling. Maybe I'll ask you for a link. All right. Professor Turkey Obin at Trash Turkey asks, what's your favorite car game to play on a road trip? Well, Crouchy, as we know you, Surge. I don't play car games on road trips, I guess. I mean, the last 2 road trips I went on, they were about 5 hours long one way. And I guess the car game that I play with my wife is, whose music are we going to listen to? And for how long? So I don't play any fun car games anymore. I imagine if I was a passenger, I do have the traveler version of Settlers of Catan. So I would definitely bring that. It's magnetized. So I would bring that if I was a passenger, but I'm typically the driver. And my wife drove last time because she'd get car sick, so I slept a bunch. So yeah. What about you, Kyle?
Well, Josh, see, I live in Iowa.
Yes, everywhere is a drive.
So everywhere's a drive. And there's often not a lot to look at. So there's only one car game recently that has been played that I think is worth talking about. And that is the game Cow Poker.
What?
How Cow Poker works is when you are driving, and this is kind of dangerous because the driver does it too, but it's Iowa, so there's nobody else on the road, so it's fine. But as you drive, when you see cows on your side of the vehicle, you have to count them, okay? So the driver counts the cows on their side, the passenger counts the cows on their side. If you pass a cemetery, whatever side that cemetery is on, that person loses all their cows. They all die. The goal is that when you get to your destination, you have the most cows. That's the entire game. The whole thing.
We don't have any cows out here.
I know. That's why I don't know that it would work. But that is Cow Poker. And that is the one car game that I play currently because, yeah, there's not a lot of other car games that I feel like I can reasonably safely play while I'm driving. So
nice. That's fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, everyone, we always appreciate when you send us questions. So keep the questions coming because obviously, sometimes we get some really great discussions out of them. And to round out the show, we would like to leave you with a recommendation for a well-rounded life. While we are clearly a gaming podcast, we just want to give you one recommendation, suggestion, or thing we are currently into that is helping us live that balanced life that we so strive for. So this isn't going to typically be something gaming related, but we hope that it's something that if you check out, you will enjoy as well. So Josh, what is your recommendation, good sir, for living a well-rounded life?
Well, like everyone else in the world, I finally saw Avengers Endgame, so that is going to be my recommendation because it made me leak from my eyes a bunch.
Hopefully tears. and not something else, because that would be
Who knows? I didn't even check to see what it was. It was great. I really enjoyed it. It was the last season of Game of Thrones. It was the movie for characters, and it had great action, but the story that it told for the original Avengers was perfect. It was great. I mean, did it have issues? Sure. But that's just, nitpicking. Like, I get to this point, I'm not calling myself an old man, but like, you like what you like. I was talking to a local bartender who I am familiar with. I tend to become friendly with all the bartenders, but this person was telling me she was 3 months pregnant, and I was very excited for her. We were talking about life and all these things and what people are telling her about becoming a mom and what to do. And we even talked about Avengers because she wanted to see it. And it gets to the point where I'm like, there comes to a point you just need to be happy. Do what makes you happy. As long as you're not hurting anyone, do that. Don't worry about what anyone else thinks. And I think that you can take that advice and apply it to anything, even Avengers Endgame, because you can go into this movie and you can pick apart things you didn't like, or you can just go into the movie and enjoy it for what it was. And if you thought it was good, then it's a good movie. I mean, we're in a hobby that typically wants us to be critical of things, which is still fine. But I found myself watching Avengers and being a little bit like that, like, I don't like that they did that. And then finally I was like, why? Why do I care? This movie was very good. It didn't take away, like, there's probably 50 things I can take out of the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy that I did not like, but the whole thing was incredible. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe Avengers Endgame made me reflect on my own life a little bit, which is unexpected. Yeah, and then also I did finally watch the Psych episode where they parodied Twin Peaks, but the first time I saw it, I had not seen Twin Peaks.
Oh.
So seeing it this time, not realizing all the things I was missing after now so it was called Dual Spires was the episode. And my wife was watching it with me. She's like, what is happening in this episode? Like, trust me, you don't know.
She sounded just like someone who watches Twin Peaks. What is happening in this episode?
Yeah.
Every episode. What is happening in this episode?
Yes.
All right. That is a great recommendation. Hey, really speaking really briefly about the Lord of the Rings trilogy, you know what is one thing I definitely learned from that?
Second breakfast. No,
I was going to say it is how to effectively light a battle like Helm's Deep. Okay. Not picking on Game of Thrones anymore. I'm just joking around. It's fine. I had no problems.
If they just had a giant eye of Sauron lighting up the battlefield, they would have been fine.
That's true. I had no problems seeing that episode of Game of Thrones, but that's fine. The thing I would recommend actually is, since we talked about games that what we're planning for gaming this summer and all of that good stuff, I'm going to recommend that, summer typically means the time, at least where I live, in the area that I live, where towns have their little festivals. And I want to encourage you to go out, go to a town festival, go to a summer concert, do something to just get involved and be outside and hang out with people and have that collective experience with others. There is something about going to something where people are just having a good time. In a lot of ways similar to going to Avengers Endgame. But there's something about being outside with other people and experiencing a cool, fun, in some ways probably kind of cheesy and hokey event together. There's just something that's joyous about that where you're there to have fun. You're kind of forgetting about the doldrums and the day-to-day monotony of work and things like that. So I would just really encourage people, if you have those festivals or if you have those things around, go ahead, get involved in them, go to them, have a good time. And especially for me, the thing that I always used to think back on when I lived in Fargo, North Dakota, first-ish week of June every year is Fargo Rib Fest. I would go to Rib Fest, have lunch there like every day, go to the concerts at night, even if there were bands I didn't like. It was just kind of the thing that I did because it was within walking distance. So it's what I did every summer. And I've tried to kind of find that summer tradition as I've continued going on and moving to different places. And it's just a good time. It kind of gets you in the mood for summer and gets you hopefully in a happy, helpful mindset and to be thankful for, a lot of the cool things that we do have in this world. So find that fun summer festival, go to it, experience it, have a grand old time.
Nice.
Do you have any fun summer festivals you go to, Josh?
I would have to probably drive to a town to find one because
you not have any? Even like
the city does not have summer festival. Okay, that's not true. We do have a food truck festival.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, we go every year.
That's very cool. So when I was growing up, really quick side story. When I was growing up, I lived in Anoka, Minnesota. Anoka is the Halloween capital of the world, which means
by who?
By them, because they were the first place in North America to have organized festivities on All Hallows Eve.
Wow.
Anyway, so they kind of picked that, which I think it fits. But anyway, that meant that our town's festival was at the end of October in Minnesota.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, that was a thing.
Oh my goodness.
That was a thing, let me tell you. Anyway, Josh, I think we've rambled on long enough tonight. What do you say we wrap this show up, sir?
Yeah, we put in a longie without a guest.
I know.
Thanks, Donnie. I kid. Thanks for joining us, everyone. In addition to finding us on Twitter and Instagram at Board with VG, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/boardwithvg. So feel free to give us a 5-star rating over there. Also, if you want to communicate in the more long form, we got some fan fiction. Oh boy, did we!
And it's so good.
It's very good. Keep your ears or eyes out for that. Feel free to email us at boardwithvg@gmail.com if you want to start. We can have competing fan fictions. I think that'd be fun.
That would be great.
I'm content with what we have. I don't mean to sound selfish. We tag our stuff with #BoardWithVG, so please use that hashtag. Let us know what you're playing, what you got going on in your lives. Whatever podcast service you are listening to us on, we encourage you to give us that stellar rating. That is whether you're downloading us from the PSVG feed, the Dice Tower Network feed, or our very own stand-alone Board with Video Games feed. You can find me on Xbox Live and PlayStation Network at Why So Serious. That is SIRRIUS. Just put BWVG in the comments or something so I know it's you. Kyle, where can they find you?
You can find me at all the usual places: Twitter, Instagram, PlayStation Network, Xbox Live, Board Game Geek, all at Cyclocross, CYCOCROSS. If you have suggestions for future topics, be sure to reach out to us on the social media because we want to talk about what you want to hear about. As promised, next week is going to be our pre-3 preview show. So we're going to talk about all things E3, what we're hoping to see, all of that great stuff, except for Sony because they're being party poopers and not going. But we'll talk a little bit about probably everyone else because we can do what we want. It's our show. Woohoo! So pre-3 preview. That's what I'm going with for the name. Pre-3 preview next week. And remember, everyone, whether it be board games or video games, never stop gaming.